they did by testing a nuclear weapon. And I'm as disappointed as Michael is that the Bush administration failed to seek implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1718. I'm not an economic advisor to the campaign. What I can say on KORUS is simply that this was not a tactical or political decision. And for anyone who doubts that, you should read Senator Obama's book, The Audacity of Hope, because he spends several pages in there talking about free trade and his own struggling with the decision of why to support the Central American Free Trade Agreement, and how he felt that our country cannot sustain a political support for free trade agreements if we allow those who are inevitably disadvantaged in certain sectors of our economy to go without any kind of job retraining, unemployment benefits, portable health care. President Bush has resolutely opposed passing trade adjustment assistance, something that is designed, in fact, not in a protectionist way, but in a compassionate way that is the minimum that our society owes to the workers to deal with the circumstances created when those workers may lose their jobs. It is one of several things that I believe would help create a better environment for the ratification of free trade agreements looking ahead down the road. And as President, Obama will sign, Congress will pass legislation providing for trade adjustment assistance. But this is not a tactical, political decision. This is about caring for the American people, and ultimately, it's about sustaining a free trade agenda. Because you cannot sustain that agenda when year after year you sign free trade agreements that leave some Americans behind and take no measures to see that they can participate in the new economy that you're trying to create. The ultimate pro-free trade position is not to neglect these workers in states like Michigan, which have the highest unemployment rate in the nation, but to understand that the government has an affirmative obligation to care for those workers. So I would characterize McCain's position in support of free trade as less effective than Obama's support for free trade, because he would sacrifice long-term support for trade liberalization and the Doha round among the American people in the interest of signing an agreement that was flawed, whatever benefits it would bring to both economies. Moving forward with a sustainable trade policy requires that.
We want to answer on Syria.
Syria, did you?
I did.
Yeah,
I just got too into it.
I forgot about it as well.
I did not.
At one level, it's tempting to say the issue has been resolved by Israeli action, but it hasn't been, because we need to have clarity on what happened, and we need to hear it from the North Koreans. We need to have the ability to visit with those who may have been involved, to get the full information about what was transferred and when and by whom. The reason we need this is not because the facility in Syria in and of itself is likely to pose a future threat, but because we don't know what else North Korea may have been up to. And the goal here is complete and verifiable elimination of all of North Korea's nuclear weapons programs. And you can't do that if they're transferring a capability from North Korea to some third country. So we need clarity. It's part of what the verification mechanism is designed to do. But the proof will be in the pudding. We don't know yet what kind of access the North Koreans are going to give us. And it's going to be a painful step-by-step process getting to the truth. If we don't get the truth, we can't have the full scope of normalization, sanctions relief, and progress with the U.S.-North Korean relationship that the six-party process envisions. So we're going to have many, many decision points along the way, where on an action-for-action basis, the United States is going to expect North Korea to provide clarity, and if we get it, we're going to be able to move forward. And if we don't, we're going to have to reassess, consult with our allies and the six-party process on what to do about it. But it is a very serious issue, not so much because of the immediate threat that facility that buried under some sand might pose, but because of what we don't know about other possible North Korean proliferation activity.
One of the criticisms of the most recent agreement to lift sanctions, terrorism-related sanctions, one of the many criticisms is that we've sent a signal that we don't care about this issue. We've essentially agreed to punt on the Syria question. And Frank's right, it's going to be hard, and the North Koreans are not going to want to tell us what happened. But by dropping that from the verification protocol, and none of us have seen it, but all the reports are it's out, it's been deferred. By dropping that, we have sent the signal that this is not that important an issue to us, which is a strategic mistake. And the reason I think it's a strategic mistake is in March 2003, at the three-party talks, DPRK, China, U.S., Lee Gun, the North Korean representative, famously told Jim Kelly, I was there, that if the U.S. did not end its so-called hostile policy, the DPRK would do three things with its nuclear deterrent. It would demonstrate it, meaning test. It would expand it, which, in fact, right at that moment they were doing with reprocessing. And they would transfer it. They telegraphed they do all three, and they've done all three. And the Syria case strikes me as an example where North Korea has decided roughly where they think our red line is, and they've gone below it because I think they calculated we would not go to war over, the shell of an eventual nuclear power plant. But they've clearly put us on notice that they can horizontally escalate against us by transferring to dangerous states. That they're going to get leverage from this, and in response to that, the Israelis, did the right thing. They blew it up. But the signals we've sent have not been the right signals. I don't think we've done anything to dissuade or deter them from continuing to test that third area of escalation, which is horizontal escalation transfer to threaten and to get leverage against us. We've sent just the wrong signal by punting on this issue, by saying, that's a hard one, let's just let that one go. I'm looking at Ed, but Congressman Royce and others on the Hill recognize this. They said in legislation, tried to say this has got to be part of this stage of the negotiations. If you want Congress to support sanctions lifting, it got watered down. But it was the right move because the signals we sent on Syria, I'm afraid, are not the kind of deterrence and dissuasion that we need to send, given North Korea's very clear signal that this is going to be an area they're going to keep exploring.
Okay. Well, let's open it up for questions. Let me just ask you to keep your questions succinct, and I will ask the panelists here likewise to keep their answers to about a minute so we can get several questions in. Sir.
You talk about engagement and disengagement. Engagement and disengagement do not work, during this period. And engagement does not work either. Look at South Korea's sunshine policy. So you have to go beyond engagement to disengagement. What are you going to do if this engagement does not work? I'm going to ask Obama.
Yeah. Well, let's repeat the question to the microphone. The gentleman said both engagement and disengagement have demonstratedly not worked. So what are you going to do in that particular case?
I guess I have to disagree a little bit with the premise of the question. Because from 1994 until 2002, North Korea did not produce 1 gram, 1 ounce of fissile material. And that was through the agreed framework process that accomplishment was achieved. Did it end North Korea's nuclear ambitions? No, absolutely. It failed to do that. But I think when you're talking about dealing with North Korea, you have to be modest in some of your expectations, and you should be focused on your core national security objectives, which in this case is denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. But we have many, many other interests with North Korea: missile proliferation, human rights, reform, ultimately reunification, establishing a lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula. It's hard to imagine how we make any progress toward these objectives through a means other than engagement. I had the privilege of meeting with Kim Dae-jung in the Blue House with my boss, Senator Biden, in 2001. And he felt that perhaps he had done a bad job explaining the Sunshine Policy to President Bush a few months before. Michael grinning because he probably shares both the perception of Kim Dae-jung at having not done such a great job and also the pain of what followed. But the key is that